The ride of your life is daddyhood.
For those of you who cannot wait and love daddyhood, please head over to our Patreon. We have exclusive access to episodes, we have early access to episodes, and we have behind the scenes footage. Head on over there, sign up, be part of the exclusive daddyhood group, and join us over there. Welcome back to Daddyhood. You're well aware we are on our path to parenthood, and I'm so excited for today's conversation. I'm welcoming Dr. Kim Bergman. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I cannot wait to get into everything around surrogacy, egg donation, and what you've created, and also just your contributions to the LGBTQ plus community over the years. Thank you. Before we get into that, I want to go over your bio for all of our listeners here. So Dr. Bergman is a licensed psychologist, is a senior partner of Growing Generations, a world-renowned surrogacy agency. She is an expert on the topic of parenting by choice within the LGBTQ plus and infertility communities. Having specialized in third-party ART since the early 1990s, she's provided psychological services to thousands of parents, assisting them in complex, extraordinary assisted reproductive process. In 1999, Dr. Bergman began working exclusively in the areas of family formation and assisted reproduction. Her practice has provided psychological evaluations and support services to hundreds of surrogates and egg donors on behalf of clients from more than 18 countries. In 2019, she published Your Future Family, The Essential Guide to Assisted Reproduction, and You Begin as a Wish. In 2021, she, along with co-editor Bill Pitoke, is that correct?
Yep.
Bill Pitoke, Psychological and Medical Perspectives on Fertility Care and Sexual Health. Welcome to Daddyhood.
Thank you so much for having
An
me.
incredible and a very impressive bio.
I appreciate it.
One name that sticks out is Growing Generations. I know when my husband and I were, first getting into where to start, that was definitely a name that we saw quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So it's an incredible company that has really helped a lot of people build their families.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
I have a lot to learn, and I'm going to learn a lot from you. But before we start,
yes,
I'm practicing my dad jokes in preparation for daddyhood.
Okay.
So if you would entertain me for a second, Kim. Mm-hmm. I don't always trust stairs. They're always up to something. That was a bad one.
Yeah,
they're all pretty.
Well, that's the kind of the definition of a dad joke, right? They're
right.
kind of bad. You kind of chuckle, but you're not really sure it's funny. But it's cute.
Between you and your wife, who has the quote unquote dad joke?
My wife.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Most of our guests say that. They're like, "Oh, my partner." And I'm
no, she'd acknowledge it.
Okay,
too.
She would acknowledge it. Great.
Yes. We've been together for 40 years.
Incredible.
So, and
married for how long?
Well, funny story, 3 times.
Okay.
Married in the 90s with a rabbi and a huppah, but no legal marriage. Married in the 2000s in Canada.
Okay.
Legal marriage, but only in Canada.
Yep.
And then married right after marriage equality was really available on our 30th anniversary 10 years ago in California. So 3 times.
Amazing. I don't know if people actually know this, but Jordan and I, technically got married twice too, but we did a courthouse right after Roe versus Wade got overturned. There was a lot of conversations around reversing marriage equality, and people, for whatever reason, were saying that. So we just went to the Beverly Hills courthouse and got married a year before our actual wedding.
That's beautiful. Well, our 30th, we had a surprise wedding, which is very hard to pull off. We had a 30th anniversary party with about 200 of our friends.
Incredible.
And only we, our 2 daughters, and our flower girl and our officiant knew we were actually getting married until the wedding music started. No one knew. It was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
we're done. No more weddings.
Yeah, what a tough thing. Maybe a 4th one, just, for giggles. So before we get into, just your profession and your career that you've built over the years, let's talk about your family.
Sure.
When did you bring your daughters into this world? How did you go about it?
Yeah.
At that time, what were some of the obstacles?
Yes, good question, because there were. My daughters are 27, almost 28, and 24, about to turn 25. So back when we first started, it was not a typical thing. And it was not an easy thing. And in fact, we were turned away by many doctors who weren't going to help a gay. They either didn't know how or they weren't going to help. We were turned away by sperm banks. It was, it was a tricky time. And we actually did home inseminations, which as a professional, I need to put in a plug and say I highly don't recommend. But we didn't have a choice back then.
Yeah.
We just couldn't find someone that would help us. So I got pregnant first. Carried our daughter Abby, who is currently a PhD student at Stanford.
She's going to be joining us.
Yes, she is. And
so excited,
really excited
to talk
and
with her.
She has she's involved in collage, which I'm sure you know about, children of gay and lesbians everywhere. She's a researcher, so you'll enjoy talking to her.
Incredible.
And then 2 years later, my wife got pregnant with our daughter, our second daughter, Jenna. And she just got married this year, so that was pretty exciting.
Yep.
And we used the same sperm donor for both of them. And a known donor, meaning we could know him later, which we have since met him.
Yep.
And my younger daughter has also met him, but the older one, Abby, who you're going to talk to, doesn't want to, and you can ask her about that. She's very open about it.
Wow, that's unique. So so your daughters had different views of how they wanted to approach their biological father.
Well, they don't consider him their biological father.
Okay.
So he's their sperm donor. And they're very, very clear about that. I mean, my wife and I, we had the benefit of, I was already a psychologist. We'd been together about 10 years when we had kids. I was already dipping my toe in this field because I knew I wanted to be a mom, always knew I wanted to be a mom. And so from the very beginning, we really we were very open, transparent, which is exactly how it should be. So my kids knew from before they could talk, which is what I recommend, just like when you're holding your baby and you're saying all kinds of things to them, they don't understand. Your fingers are so long, maybe you'll play the piano, look at that head of hair. They don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And we also put in, mommy and mama wanted a baby and this nice man gave us the seed that we needed.
Yeah.
And then of course, as they got older, we filled in the actual biology. So they've always known the truth of their story and we followed their lead in their questioning.
Yeah.
So our younger daughter was very interested and actually did 23andMe. She didn't have to because we had his identity. We knew who he was, but she did it that way, which is true to her personality. She's very independent. So she found him on 23andMe. And then she reached out to him. And my older daughter knows all of this, and she's just got a very different opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not missing anything, And my younger daughter doesn't feel like she's missing anything either. She was really just curious. It was kind of like a one-time meet and move on.
Yeah. For our listeners out there, I think it would be helpful, prior to listening to this episode, to listen to the Rich Vaughn one, because we go over the different types of cases, whether it's closed, open, semi-open. And that was my first time connecting the dots for 23andMe. Which,
and the truth is, there isn't really closed anymore.
Right.
Because of
see, that's terrifying to me because I think Jordan and I would consider the steps that we took to protect ourselves as closed as you can get.
But it's terrifying to you because of the donor finding you?
No.
Because of your child finding the donor?
I'm still working through exactly how I feel with this. I'm feeling more just in my own life and with my family, obviously want to protect my family, protect my life. I just feel like privacy is a big, something that I value more than anything now.
Yeah.
And the thought and connecting those dots with Rich of like, 23andMe would put, my child out there and that our egg donor would then know, and we've taken all of these steps and contracts and remaining anonymous on some calls, and then it could just go away one day.
So a couple thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
Don't mind at all.
Okay, so firstly, donors are less interested in finding your child or you than your child might be interested in finding the donor one day.
Okay.
And the reason, if I may be a psychologist for a moment.
Please, I need all the work I can
get.
The
reason that you have fear about it is because of what you're thinking it means if the child is interested in finding their donor.
Yes, and I'll say this too. What's unique, and we got into this with Rich about our case.
Of course, who you are.
Well, not only that, we had a unique thing happened for the first time with Rich. And that was midway through, right before she went to do the retrieval. She approached and asked for more money because it was a lot harder than she expected. She was having mixed feelings about what she was doing.
Yes.
So it's sort of...
I don't love that.
Yeah. And it was tough for us too. And ultimately we made the decision that we would never understand what it meant to do what she was doing.
You're not wrong about that.
So anyway, it's a complex feeling of why.
So it is complex. And that does add a layer of complexity. So I think the most important thing, and again, unsolicited advice, so I apologize.
You know, you're good.
The most important thing is you and your husband and your kids, and being really clear about who she is and who she isn't.
Right.
And you being very open with your kids and transparent from the beginning. That doesn't mean her identity needs to be shared. I wouldn't share that right from the beginning. But obviously you use, your baby's not going to get it. But by kindergarten, they understand, like, wait, I don't have a mom. Right, you don't. You have two dads. You had a surrogate who carried you. You had a nice woman who gave us an egg for you. And, it was a team effort. It was a big village. And if you create that strong foundation, then eventually when your kid or kids have curiosity or want to meet the donor, it's because they're curious. It's not because they're missing something.
Yeah.
But you're right, it is fraught and it is complicated. But the good thing is that you're thinking about it.
Totally.
And
we have folders.
So
we have folders of pictures of our egg donor.
But I mean, you are talking about your feelings about it.
Yes,
you're preparing yourself for how you're going to, and part of your job now in the next 9 months, provided it worked, is to practice those conversations with not your kids, with your friends and with each other. And it's not role playing, it's actually practicing. Like, here's what we're thinking, here's what we did, here's why we did it. And, and getting yourself really geared up for having those conversations.
I'm curious, you mentioned earlier, your daughter doesn't refer to them as a biological father. Both your daughters don't refer to them? Is that something you suggested as a psychologist to push, or did they come up with that on their own?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of both. I mean, we just never referred to him that way. We referred to him as a sperm donor. Nice guy, gave us his seed, his sperm, so that we could have them, and we were very, very grateful to him. And but he's not their father. I mean, father and mother are boxes that have meaning. There's a social meaning. So is he genetically, technically, biologically their father? Yes, he is. Genetically, biologically, technically, physically. But father is just kind of the wrong term.
Got it.
I mean,
I would agree with that.
This is, my professional and personal opinion, and trust me, there are people who completely disagree.
Yep.
There are a lot of people who disagree, and there's people in the donor-conceived world who disagree, and it's healthy for them to disagree, to have everybody has their own experience. But our sperm donor was a sperm donor. His intention was to help someone else have a family.
Yeah.
He has his own family. He has his own kids that he raised. His intention was not to be the father of my children, nor was your egg donor. She didn't intend to be the mom, neither does your surrogate. They have a role that they're taking on. And one of the things that's really important is understanding the ethics of this whole third-party experience.
For sure.
And there is an ethical way to do it, and there's an unethical way to do it. And that doesn't mean everybody agrees on how it's done. Yeah,
right when you said that, I was like, should we consider how we communicate with our kids and what words we use around? But yeah, it's something that we're going to have to keep thinking through.
And I should have brought you, I didn't think of it. I should have brought you my book. I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Because I wrote a children's book called You Began as a Wish, which is exactly this. It's to your child. You began as a wish.
Yeah.
This is...
And we're going to link that in the show notes here too. So anybody who's looking for that.
It's a fun little book to help. It helps adults understand it too, but it's a great little story. But in terms of the ethics, the thing that's important to understand there is when third-party assisted reproduction is done right.
Yep.
The egg donor, sperm donor, and surrogate or gestational carrier, whatever you want to call her, they're fully informed. Yeah. They are educated. They are told of the risks. They understand. And your donor may not have been as fully informed as she should have, but they understand. Now, can we understand everything of how we're going to feel once we do it? No, we cannot. But that's why you have professionals, psychologists, lawyers, doctors, talking through the whole process. So here's what, having worked with 1,000 egg donors, here's what you might feel. Here are all the things for you to consider. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about what you might feel if 20 years from now someone knocks on your door? Sometimes people don't think about that. And it still doesn't mean you'll know how you're going to feel, but at least we're really informing. Same with the gestational carrier. Do you understand that you're giving up some bodily autonomy? Do you understand that you're a partner to this family, that your goal is to create a family, not a new friend, and not become part of their family? And also, you're not giving them a baby. It's their baby.
Yeah.
But
there's a bond. In my opinion, I don't know. That's just how I think through it.
So there's a bond, but the bond, and I'll let you delve into this later when you talk to a surrogate. The bond is very specific. So you tagged your surrogate in yesterday. She is now...
For those who don't know, because I haven't... No, you're fine. But Jordan and I actually did our embryo transfer yesterday with our surrogate. And we're fingers crossed, positivity.
Wait, let me say it this way.
Yeah.
Generically. When the surrogate has the embryo transfer, the intended parents tag her in at the IVF, so at the doctor's office. So you make the embryo.
Yep.
You tag your it.
When you say tag your it, it's just like the WWE, like you're going in the ring now, right? Is that what you mean?
I'm saying you're tagging the surrogate for the next part of the journey.
Right.
And now she's going to carry your baby, and she's going to do everything you, the doctor, the lawyer, ask of her, within reason, things that are expected.
Yeah.
And she's going to be your partner. And then in the delivery room, she's tagging you back in.
Yep.
So, it's a partnership. It's a journey. The surrogate does not see herself, nor is she giving you a baby. She's not making a baby or giving you a baby. The gift she's giving you is the gift of fatherhood. That's the gift. Daddyhood. In your case. Or parenthood, or she's making a mom, she's making a dad, she's making a big sister. She's not making a baby. She doesn't see it that way. And the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for the surrogate is in the delivery room, seeing your face when you lay eyes on your baby for the first time. She's not looking at the baby. She is looking at you. And I've been in enough deliveries with surrogates. I'm watching the surrogate who's watching the parents who are looking at the baby. That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
So this is a partnership. This is, so going back to the ethics, done correctly, it's what I just said. Could it be done incorrectly? Sure. At Growing Generations, we only accept 1% of the applicants who come to us. So this means 100 very well-meaning women who have had kids, who really want to do it, 99 of them will not qualify for any number of mostly innocent reasons, not having anything to do with them doing something wrong. But we are very, very, very strict, because if we are only accepting 1%, it means the women who actually make it to be your surrogate or someone's surrogate, they're ready. Yeah. They know what they're getting themselves into. They know why they're doing it. So that makes it really ethical. And, there's some arguments that, these women are being exploited, taken advantage of. Well, get yourself in a room of women who've been successful surrogates and let them argue that out with you, because they are, this is about women's reproductive rights. Yeah. And it is about women's right to choose. And we're talking about gestational carriers, fully informed and educated, choosing to help another person become a parent.
Yeah, I think I don't want to gloss over this either, because, as someone who still considers himself a Christian man, even, the Pope's comments, going in and challenging. I just, I also think it was a little destructive.
Very.
And also not a great representation of people of faith, in my opinion. And I know that there's a lot of mixed opinions, not only in our community, but out there right now. I just think there's no need for it. There was zero need for that comment.
The thing is, those kinds of comments are truly based on misconceptions. Of course. Look, no one wants women to be exploited. No one wants women to be taken advantage of, or anyone to be...
I think he said women rent their bodies out, is what his exact words were.
Which is so insulting to the women for whom this is a calling.
Yep.
We're not talking about... And this is, again, goes into the screening process and the ethics of this process, this journey. We're talking about NICU nurses, school teachers, stay-at-home moms. We're talking about women who are salt of the earth. They are not on the fringe of society, barely able to put food on their table for their kids.
Right.
Those women won't qualify, shouldn't be surrogates. So we're talking about people for whom this is like a hobby, a project, something that is a calling. They love more than anything else being moms, and they love being pregnant. So this is like, I get to give the gift of motherhood to someone. Imagine if the thing that's the most important thing in the world to you, and your body does it really well, you're able to give that gift to someone else. I mean, I get the chills, and I do this every day, and it moves me just to say that.
I mean, yes, to all of that. And I think that I can't even put into words. I mean, I know, like, we're supposed to be getting the results. And for those who are listening, whether we edit this in or out, I don't know how we're going to do this. I'm obviously going through these episodes with a little bit of a delay, and that's on purpose because I want to be able to, like,
say what happens,
but also it's an emotional roller coaster, and I want to protect myself. I want to protect Jordan. I want to protect our family. Yeah. So we're supposed to be getting the results on my birthday of her blood test for her first pregnancy test. Yep. So I was like, this could be the best birthday present I've ever received. And for those of you who did not know, January 26th is my birthday. I think this will not come out for a few weeks, if not a month after that. But what a gift. That's sort of what goes through my mind, is what a gift.
Yeah.
And I want to get back, because I want to backtrack just a little bit. We've had a lot of men on. And one thing that I want to always keep in mind is a female perspective and your journey as well. Your journey is much different than mine. And not only just maybe with the gap of time that we've gone through this, but also I want to talk about, from what I've learned so far, about how women have to select sperm donors is a much different process to how men select eggs.
Yes.
I want to talk about that, because my initial reaction of, like, currently where the status is, I don't think it's fair. One, I think it's sort of weird that there's such a difference, and we'll get into that. And then two, can we talk about what your process was when you went through it?
Totally.
Back, I don't want to say back in the day, but like
it was back in the day.
Was it when it was in the 90s?
Yeah.
Okay. So back in the 90s. Let's start there.
Okay.
How did you go about selecting your sperm donor, and what was that approach like?
Yeah. So first of all, there was very little guidance. Very little. The guidance was, if you will, I'm making this up, it's not really called this, but we kind of jokingly called this like an underground lesbian, like, who wanted to be moms.
Incredible.
Like, what do we do? How do we do it?
Yeah.
There was, no official word on how to do it. As I mentioned earlier, many sperm banks wouldn't help lesbians or single moms at that time. We couldn't find a doctor to do the insemination. We had my OB, who was my OB-GYN at the time. I wasn't pregnant yet, so I guess GYN part of OB-GYN. Yep. And she said, she made some really awful comments to us, like, go have sex with, why don't you just go have sex with a man? Like, that'll be much easier. Like, things that she just didn't understand, which is why we turned to home insemination. But in terms of choosing a donor, yes. So back in the 90s, it's still...
Wait, so I'm thinking this through right now, but you just said home insemination and donor. Yeah. So that means that donor would have to be in your home at some point.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So what happened is back in the day, in the 90s, sperm banks, and they're not that different now, but they're better. We got no information, like literally a paragraph of, no picture, no baby picture, nothing. Literally a paragraph, ethnic background, couple of things about his health, and that was it. So, we spent and there was no online. There was literally going to the sperm bank and looking through a book. And we did that many times, and we chose a couple different donors. And we got frozen sperm from the sperm bank, and it didn't work. Now, part of it was because we weren't going through infertility, and we weren't with a reproductive endocrinologist. So who knows how they controlled the thawing process and the insemination process. Like, I don't know how that was done, by our doctor, who didn't really know what she was doing, or by us, who did it literally warm up the frozen sperm in a cup,
Yeah.
So it didn't work time and time again. So we tried for about 2 years, and you had said your process is different from ours. I will say emotionally pretty similar. It's just logistically and cost-wise, obviously different.
I actually meant information. The
Yes.
information that you're provided is drastically different
Drastically
than what
different.
men are with their egg donors.
Drastically different. And so we went through a number of sperm donors, initially trying, I was going to go first. So I was going to be the only one at first. So trying to match sort of my wife's characteristics just didn't work. So we turned to the lesbian underground. I think it probably still exists, but I don't want to know because as a professional, we took so many risks that we shouldn't have taken, but we were desperate. And that's actually part of why I am on such a soapbox about family building, because when you want to have a kid, whether you're gay, straight, single, infertile, post-cancer, anything, you easily get to a very desperate place. And when you're in a desperate place, you will do things, anything, to make it happen. And that's why it's so important that those of us in the profession make sure that we're doing everything at the highest ethical level, because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You don't know what's right or wrong. I do. So it's my job to make sure that you're not in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So in the 90s, I did not have any guidance. I was young and I was desperate. I wanted to be a mom, and it took 2 years of trying. So we turned to lesbian underground. We used a fresh donor. Now, just think about it. This is the 90s, fresh donor. He was through a broker. We didn't meet him, but he, I don't always share this story, but it's long enough ago, and I guess I can share it because I generally protect it, and I'm conscious of the fact that there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this. But, I'm not embarrassed about it. It was it really is what informs me about being so ethical. But we used a broker. We trusted him. And, we love our girls, so they're perfect. But, in hindsight, we had no idea what we were doing. We trusted him that the donor was HIV tested. We trusted him that the donor was the donor he said, because he literally met the donor at the airport. The donor flew in. We chose from a small pool of donors, fresh donors. Donor flew in, met this guy, went to a lab, made the deposit. He drove it to our house, knocked on our door, brought us fresh sperm. And we did intrauterine insemination, which I, again, do not recommend at home. But a good friend of ours were a lesbian couple that were a nurse and a doctor, and they did the insemination. They weren't in this field, but they were a nurse and a doctor. They did my insemination. I got pregnant on the first try with that fresh sperm. Funny story. So we're at home, and we're like, okay, let's make this romantic. We had candles, we had music, we had wine. We did the insemination. We did a little lesbian ritual. I don't know what it was, but sending out prayers to the universe. So after I got pregnant, I had Abby. They had a son who's about a year younger than Abby. They did it very similar way. And so when we did my wife's insemination, we had 2 toddlers, Sesame Street in the background, and noise and craziness. And it was get the sperm in already. Come on, let's go. Picture. It was funny, but she got pregnant on the first try too. So, and this story helps me when I'm talking to clients, because every time for almost 2 years that I didn't get pregnant with this donor, then that donor, then this perfect donor, then that perfect donor, I was, cursing the universe. And in retrospect, of course, I got pregnant with the perfect donor because I have these 2 kids and they're the perfect kids. And it helps me because this is not a linear process, and it is not a sprint. It is a marathon. It is a buckle your seatbelt marathon. And there are natural speed bumps. If your surrogate isn't pregnant, that's going to hurt. But it's a natural speed bump because about 75% of the time surrogates are pregnant on the first try, which means 25% of the time they're not, and nothing's wrong. Right. There are a lot of speed bumps, and it's very hard when you're in this process to trust the process and have the long view that I'm going to be a dad, I'm going to be a parent, I'm going to be a parent, no matter what, I keep going. And my own history helps to inform that, because if I had my way, I would have been pregnant right away, different kid. I know that I would have been happy there, but I have the best 2 kids, and they wouldn't be them. So, I am a scientist, but I also do believe I have a lot of faith in the universe, a lot. I'm a very faith-based person, and I really believe that the universe has a way of making it all work out. And so that I use that, that helps me win. But
I'm very much like you. So that ultimately was what our decision was when our egg donor approached for more money, even though contracts were signed and we were all locked in.
Yeah.
Was same thing as like, this is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
I can't relate to her. I'm so thankful for her. Also, I want to put good energy into the world.
Exactly.
I don't want to start our journey off with some weird, like, this process already costs a lot.
Yeah.
There's a big burden financially that you take when you go through growing your family, and you're very intentional with it. So that was sort of our ultimate, is like, what's a couple more dollars? And also, we can't say thank you enough.
Yeah.
And maybe this is our way to say thank you.
No,
again.
I mean, you're right. I mean, I thank our sperm donor daily in my mind, and how we picked him was because it wasn't working. We basically had this pool of about 10 donors that were, all of the things we thought we cared about, how he looked or his eye color. Or
so I want to get into
profession.
this.
Yeah.
So did you get to see adult pictures of him?
No, not when we chose him.
Let's talk. Let's explain to the audience too, because I think
not even we saw baby pictures.
Right. So here's the main differences that I've come to understand from some of my lesbian friends who have gone through this process.
Yes.
And also straight women out there who are going through, becoming mothers solo. When they select, and I don't want to speak for you, I'll speak for men. When men select their egg donor, we have access to a lot of photos, baby photos, current photos, photos of their family,
Video.
of their dads, of their sons or brothers, videos of them talking, all of this data.
Yeah.
Come to find out, when women go through this, the only information they get is, I'll let you tell.
A paragraph. I mean, so back in the day, a paragraph. Now, when we were working with Sperm Bank, it was very little. With this broker, we had some baby pictures and we knew a little bit more, but we still didn't have adult pictures. Now at Sperm Banks, you still only get baby pictures.
Why is that?
It's a weird double standard.
I mean,
here's what I think.
I was like, how is this still a thing?
Here's what I think. So, sperm donation predates egg donation by decades.
Okay.
So, I mean, decades ago, there were already doctors using sperm donors, often themselves or their students, medical students, know. And so it was just completely anonymous. Like, they were even, the advice they gave to the parents was don't even tell your kid, because these aren't gay families, these are heterosexual families. Don't even tell your kid we use a donor. Like, no one will ever know. Super shrouded in secrecy.
Yeah.
So then sperm banks kind of evolved from that mentality. Like, this is just a sperm. It's not your dad. It's not he's not important. You don't need to know anything. Just like you need sperm. And so that's just like, it's a norm that has sort of stuck.
Yep.
And so, and because sperm can be donated and like 10 years later used, like, you're just, as the field evolved, that sort of got frozen in time. By the time we have egg donors, we're in a very different mindset. And now even more so, we understand the importance of open identity because of the kids. They will, if they want to know, like, it's their story, they need to have a way to be able to find out. But it's for sure a double standard. I mean, men are also paid way less. Of course, getting sperm is a lot easier than getting eggs.
What's the general range?
I don't know
cost
what
of sperm these days?
I don't. The cost, I actually don't know, but we could easily find out. But not a lot.
Okay,
it's not a lot.
The range for egg, I'll go on record and say, like, at least from my experience, the range for eggs and the costs were anywhere from 20,000 and maybe ours, I don't know, 20,000. I would say I saw all the way up to 500,000
for paying the donor herself.
That was what the fee was for.
Generally,
when we
it's about, I would say, 8,000 on up. But here's the other thing, and it's very important. Like, no one should ever pay a crazy astronomical amount for a donor. And here's why. It's not because it's not worth it. Of course, it's worth anything.
Yeah.
It's because there's a point at which, as a human, you will put your own ethics, your own needs, your own wants aside for a certain amount of money.
Nurture versus nature.
And
That's
we don't want a donor who shouldn't. We don't want to say to some woman, like, okay, so would you donate your eggs for 50,000? No. How about 300,000? Yes. We don't want that, because we want the person who's saying, Yes, all along. And I don't mean to undercut it. It's, we don't want the donor to go against her own, to be enticed by such a huge amount of money that she says yes even when she means no. So it's kind of an important balancing act. Now, donors used to be, the fees were really controlled by agencies, but egg donors got together and actually sued. It was the American Society of Reproductive Medicine that set the prices, the fees, and they actually sued and won.
So now egg donors can set their own prices.
Can set their own prices. Now,
can sperm donors set their own prices?
I don't think so. But
it's just a flat fee.
Well, at banks, I don't think so. But like at Growing Generations, we have some sperm donors, and we treat them the same as egg donors. So there's a video, there's pictures, and they get paid more. Not the same amount, maybe the same.
So you provide adult pictures at Growing Generations.
Oh yeah, egg donors and sperm donors, adult pictures and video, and we also facilitate meeting over Zoom.
Yep.
If everybody wants to.
Jordan and I did that with ours, just with our camera off and using aliases.
And we also work with a really great bank called Every, which has the ability for donors and parents to choose each other. They don't have to. It can be the more traditional way, but there's also the ability for them to choose, which is empowering the women to have because they are a pivotal part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, but you're not wrong. Men and women are treated differently in this, in all aspects of reproductive care. In fertility care, men are traditionally kind of ignored.
Yep.
And this is all about women's infertility, and it's only more recently that men's infertility is even being looked at.
Yep.
And in terms of, obviously gay men. I mean, this is why Growing Generations started. Growing Generations was started because no one would help gay men have babies through surrogacy. There were resources for heterosexual couples, so we knew that surrogacy was a thing. It was it worked, and nobody would help gay men.
Yep.
So a gay man who happens to be a friend of mine cobbled it together himself with an egg donor and a surrogate, had a baby. He was a prominent attorney in LA, brought that baby around, and everyone was like, "How'd you do it? What'd you do?" And he said, "This is what I did. Let me talk to you about it." And 2 or 3 men came to him, and he came to me and said, like, "Help. You're a psychologist. Do you want to help?" And at the time, I said, I do feel like I'm a really good psychologist, and I could kind of learn anything. And I was already helping lesbian moms become kids. Abby was already born. And so I said, sure. We met in a Starbucks because we didn't have an office. Yeah. So we met over coffee. And I said, yeah, that sounds fun. I had a busy practice. I helped 1 or 2. Within 5 years, we both had to give up our other jobs. He was a corporate lawyer. I was a psychologist. We both were like, this, we have to just do this full time. And we have, he's one of the founders. There's another founder. I came in as a partner. My current partner came in, and it evolved over the last almost 30 years. But it was an accident because no one else, would help. And of course, within about 5-7 years, we had lots of heterosexual couples knocking down the door. Will you help us? Of course. And now our clientele is a very big mix of everybody.
Amazing. Well, I want to lean into, I'll back up and say that, we didn't use Growing Generations, but on behalf of all of the families that you've helped, gay and straight, thank you. It's an overwhelming process to even begin. So to have somebody, of your guys' caliber to help guide is important. So thank you on behalf of those families. And I think tapping into, the just the support that you can provide for families. I want to talk about what kind of support systems can these families prepare for going through assisted reproductive, this process. How can you best prepare a support system, both with your family and your friends, but then also, how can healthcare providers in our communities better support people who are going through assisted reproductive processes? And
so, 2 sort of tangential issues. Obviously, one is for LGBTQ families, and the other is just the third party experience in general, because both are fraught in the family building world. So we'll take first just fertility care and third party for anybody. It is jarring for many family members when they learn that you're going to be bringing someone else into the mix of helping you have a baby. And what I found over the years is, many potential grandparents they come on board.
Yeah.
Because they want grandchildren and they,
Totally.
so it's just, being honest and being open with your family. And then, there are plenty of care providers. So choosing ones that really know how to work with infertility, so there's infertility, and then there's third-party infertility. So infertility is like husband and wife can't have a baby, need to do IVF or IUI, need medication, need some support, but the gametes come from both of them, and the mom is the carrier as well.
Yep.
Third party is when there's an additional third party. So heterosexual couple can't make embryos, need an egg donor or a sperm donor to help make embryos, mom carries the baby. Or they can make embryos but can't carry the baby, and a surrogate carries the baby, or all of those things where they need an egg donor, a sperm donor, and or a surrogate, any one, two, or all three of those. Yep. And then obviously with LGBTQ families, we need a third party. We cannot do it without a third party, whether it's a friend donating sperm or whether it's a sperm from a sperm bank or an egg donor or a carrier. Yep. And lesbians need gestational carriers just as much as gay men sometimes need sperm donors. Like, it doesn't matter what your parts are. The parts you need an egg, a sperm, a uterus, a home. Those are the 4 ingredients that we all come from. Sometimes all 4 of those come from the same 2 people. Sometimes they come from all different people. Home are the parents.
Yep.
And those other parts can come from, the parents as well, or anyone else. So it's really just about explaining the mechanics of it, and being very, protecting your privacy is completely valid and important, and being proud of the story of how you choose to make your family.
Right.
Because, that's your story, and that's your kid's story. Family Equality is a great resource, not only for individuals, but also for professionals, because they have a lot of educational material and workshops and trainings and things like that. The American Society for Reproductive Medicine also does a lot of trainings for professionals. Yep. There's an LGBTQ special interest group, which I helped found.
Yeah.
There's a mental health professional group, which has a lot of resources for LGBTQ families as well as third party. So there's a lot of education for professionals. Yeah. And then for the consumer, it's just really trusting your gut when you talk to the professional. Like, they need to know the language. They, do their forms start out with mom and dad? It's problematic. If the form starts out with mom and dad, chances are along the lines in that practice, they don't completely understand that there might be mom, just mom, dad, dad, whatever. Yeah. I like parent for the form.
Yeah, I like that too. And I do want to, plug Family Equality. They are a partner of ours. Yeah. And I've been proud to be, supporting them. Yes. And all of the incredible work that they are doing. I know they were formerly called the Gay Men's Coalition.
A long time ago.
A long time ago. But back to the name sounds familiar.
They were Family Pride.
Family Pride. They've had so many great and incredible evolutions. But a great place for LGBTQ plus people to look to, whether if you feel you're in harm currently where you're at in your state with your family and or coming out. They have so much great information on their site.
Well, no, I got involved with Family Equality when my kids were little, because my oldest, Abby, at the time, she must have been only about maybe, 5 or 6. And, we lived in LA. They went to a progressive school. We went to Family Day in the park, so they knew other LGBTQ headed families. Yep. And there was something happened, and my daughters are really smart and really savvy, and something happened, I don't remember what, in the world that was an example of something homophobic, and it was her first thought that happened, and she came home from school and she was talking about it, and she really was only about 6 or 7, maybe 5 or 6, and it was like her worldview kind of shifted because she'd never experienced that, and that is when I realized I was living in a privileged bubble in LA, and I needed to do something for other families who didn't have the same level of privilege that my kids did, where that homophobia felt like a real anomaly to Abby. Yep. And I knew there were families that were feeling that every minute. And so that minute I got involved in family equality and became a major donor, and then served on the board, and I was a chair, and now I'm on the emeritus board. I mean, I realized that, those of us in those bubble communities really have to step up, because there are so many families that are not in those bubble communities, and it's really scary.
Yeah. And I mean, good for you. When you have a platform, you have to use it. And that's, I've said it a few times on this, but that's the goal here, is just to humanize this whole experience for everybody, including middle America. But I want to wrap with this segment. I want to talk about some myths that surround surrogacy. So I'm just going to throw out, this is not what I believe, I'm just going to throw out statements, I'm going to throw out topics, and I just sort of want you to react and talk through it with me.
Okay.
Assisted reproductive technology guarantees a successful pregnancy.
Okay, interesting. So no, nothing guarantees a successful pregnancy. However, yes, in that if you are willing to keep going, take guidance, and give up some of your ideas of what you thought it would look like, it's almost a yes. Here's why. If you are willing to continue to make embryos, take the guidance from professionals on, what is going to be have the most efficacy in terms of your sperm, or if you need to change to a sperm donor and an egg donor, if you're a heterosexual couple, or you're willing to take donated embryos, and you'll take the surrogate I tell you will get, is awesome, and if she doesn't get pregnant, we match you again. So it's almost a yes. It's not a given, and I would say 100%. Close to 100% of people who continue and don't give up will be parents. But there's a lot to give up in the process, and it can be a really arduous, long journey, and many people give up before that point. 95 in our practice, 90 to 95% of our intended parents will have a baby within 3 embryo tries with their surrogate. So that leaves 5 to 10% that are going to be, where we need a new surrogate, a new egg donor, start over, make more embryos. But for us, we stick with them. We don't. There's no more fees. There's some cost, medical expenses, but we just stick with them. And for those people, and if you're listening to this podcast and you're one of those people, you know who you are. I was there with you every moment. You will have a baby. And you do. And then, years later, you come back to me and you go, "You were right, Kim. Thank you for not letting me give up."
Incredible insight. Great answer. It was a loaded statement.
Yeah.
Another one. Only older couples need ART.
Not true. Yeah, not at all. So first of all, single people need ART and deserve to have it. Many people post medical issues need ART. There are lots of young people who had cancer or who are infertile. If you're trying to get pregnant on your own for a year and it doesn't work, and you're heterosexual and you're married and you're having sex with your husband, or your wife, and you're not pregnant, you may need help. And it doesn't matter how old you are. So that's definitely a myth.
Okay. Assisted reproduction technologies and IVF are interchangeable terms. So ART and IVF.
No. IVF, in vitro fertilization, very specific medical process where egg and sperm are fertilized outside of the body, then grown, and then put back into a uterus to carry. ART refers to all kinds of assisted reproductive technologies, including donor insemination, IUI, which is intrauterine insemination, a heterosexual couple who just needs medication to help, or timing. So ART is a much broader term that includes IVF.
Incredible. ART always involves designer babies.
No, that is not true. But it can look that way, and I understand that. ART is especially third-party assisted reproduction, which is when we're talking about donor egg or donor sperm. It is putting a lot of puzzle pieces together. So there's lots of elements to it. And yes, you are choosing an egg donor and or choosing a sperm donor, but there are only so many things you can choose, and there are only so many things that are actually hereditarily proven to be So it is a myth, and also I think from the perspective of intention, it is rarely the intention of intended parents that they're designing or picking particular traits. I will tell you, I help people choose donors all the time. They're rarely choosing particular traits. What they are typically at the top of the list is health. They want longevity, health. I mean, our sperm donor, when we finally ended up with our donor, we had a pool of 10 people who were super healthy. And I threw a dart. Literally, I picked the one that had the most sperm, highest sperm count, because I was like, this is ridiculous. I just need sperm, you know? So most people, their number one trait that they want is a really super healthy donor. They often look at longevity of grandparents, things like that. Ethnicity, mostly they just want to match. You know, and if they're of different ethnicity, if the couple's a different ethnicity, they often want to match. But almost never are they saying like blonde, blue-eyed. Sometimes they'll choose something like, they'll say height, but it's not because they're trying to design a baby. It's because they want a baby that will kind of match them. So, you know, if I've got parents who are 5 feet tall, they don't want a 6 foot tall kid because it's like kind of, they want the kid to feel part of the family. So, you know, or if, you know, we have a really musical family and they want a donor who's musical, it's not because they're trying to make a designer music protege. It's because they know they value music and they want a kid who's going to be part of that. So no, designer babies, not a real thing.
I love that answer. And I can't tell you how many times, even through the process with Jordan of selecting, is like, you know, I said, man, I don't want to play God. I'm not like, this is not, and it was one of those things that we sort of reevaluated some of our criteria of what we were doing to build our family. Thank you so much for being here.
A pleasure.
And we ask all of our guests to leave us with one piece of parenting wisdom. It can be something that was passed down to you. It could be something that you have now passed to your children, or you just heard it on the street one day and you're like, I really like that. Can you leave us with some parenting wisdom or advice?
Can I have two?
Of course you can have two.
So one is for those hopeful parents. For people who want to be parents, whatever your family constellation, it is the most amazing thing. It's not for everybody, but if it's for you, it is the most amazing thing, and it is completely possible. No matter how much help you need, it is completely possible, and do not give up on it because it is the best thing ever.
Amen.
And for those people who are already parents, you know, just looking at my own experience with my 27 and 24-year-old, love, listening, being interested, really knowing them. That's what everybody wants.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, my absolute pleasure.
I know this is going to help so many people.
I hope so.
And
well, I'm thrilled to be a resource for people, and you know, anybody who is interested in finding out more about this process, you know, I'm happy to talk to them, walk them through it, whether they use Growing Generations or not. You know, this is my calling. It's my reason. And
where can people find your books?
You can find them all on Amazon. Super easy. That's probably the easiest place. So the children's book is You Began as a Wish, and it is I love it. It's the story that I've told to families for years and finally put it into a picture book for people. And then my book that's sort of a how to do this, and it's not specific to Growing Generations. It's really just, this is what the process is. That's called Your Future Family, The Essential Guide to Assisted Reproductive.
I need to get a copy. I'll add it to my books.
I cannot believe I didn't bring you one of each.
Yeah,
and I'll ship
will
them
order
to
one
you.
off of Amazon. You do not need to bring one. And then
totally should have.
I'll read it and then we could discuss.
You know, they're just helpful. The third book is a textbook, so super dry. I don't recommend that one.
Got it. Yeah. My husband would love that.
Hey,
I can't.
It's a really great book with lots of. It's got a lot of great information.
The picture book is more my speed.
The picture book is my absolute favorite, and so yeah, I hope you'll enjoy that. And it's been a real pleasure, and I'm just so excited for you guys.
Thank you.
As I said to you, I'm here as a resource as well.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And that's a wrap on Daddyhood.
The ride of your life is Daddyhood.